The movie opens up by showing a spaceship carrying the Life Foundation company's specimens. The company returns to Earth with several astronauts on board. As they entered the Earth's atmosphere, there was chaos in the plane's cabin and they called for help. Then it was seen that the plane belonging to the Life Foundation was forced to make an emergency landing in eastern Malaysia. Then many rescue teams were seen following the downed plane. The team from the Life Foundation was seen lowering several canisters containing something. Meanwhile, at the Life Foundation's headquarters, the leader named Carlton Drake looked worried. He asked the number of organisms that had been found. His employees said that 3 had been found and 1 had disappeared, meaning that the Life Foundation took 4 samples of organisms from outer space. From the screen, one of the astronauts managed to survive, then one female officer who handled the astronaut and took him by ambulance. In the middle of the journey, the astronaut woke up and from his hand came out in the form of a tentacle. One tried to grab the woman and the other grabbed the ambulance driver and caused the ambulance to overturn. Then it was seen from inside the ambulance that a female officer came out who initially walked with a limp then slowly returned to normal. Then moved to the Francisco, California scene. In a house there are a couple who are enjoying their morning. The 2 of them are Anne and Eddie Brock. Anne looks ready with a suit and is getting ready to go to work while Eddie looks like he just woke up from his sleep. Anne left for work and so did Eddie. Eddie goes by motorbike. Eddie is a television reporter. Eddie often brings news about social criticism, injustice in society, corruption cases and so on. The point is that Eddie is a journalist who dares to tell the truth even at risk. Arriving at Eddie's office, he was greeted by his friend, the receptionist named Richard, then seen Eddie meet his boss. There the boss ordered Eddie to conduct an exclusive interview with Carlton Drake, who wanted to spread the message that his rocket was safe and the recent accident was an anomaly. Eddie looks displeased because he thinks Drake is a fraud. According to Eddie, he is a reporter who can't pretend to be good if he finds something wrong, but Eddie's boss still forces Eddie to do an exclusive interview with Drake. Eddie was forced to accept it. That night Eddie was having dinner with Anne. Eddie said that he didn't really want to interview Drake, but because of the demands from his superiors, he would try his best. It turned out that Anne herself was a lawyer who worked at a law firm under Drake's Life Foundation. Then they both decided to go home. At night, Eddie wakes up from his sleep. He sees Anne's laptop on. There he finds a confidential email from the Life Foundation where Anne works. Out of curiosity, Eddie opens the email. In the email there is a secret file that claims the unnatural death of the Life Foundation, which contains data on the number of volunteers, poor people who died as a result of being tested in the Life Foundation. The next day at the Life Foundation, Drake was seen speaking in front of schoolchildren who were doing field trips. A moment later he left ready to do an interview. Then it was Eddie's turn to do an exclusive interview with Drake. In the first session Eddie asked Drake good things and the interview looks normal. Over time Eddie asks sensitive things about the death of the experimental volunteers carried out by the Life Foundation. It makes Drake look uncomfortable and angry. Drake orders the security guard to kick Eddie and threaten Eddie. Eddie went back to his office. There Eddie's boss looked disappointed. Eddie couldn't stand lying. He couldn't stand to reveal the truth and it led to his dismissal. Eddie was fired at the same time. Then Eddie tried to meet Anne. When he came out of his office, Anne was seen carrying a cardboard box, which meant she was also fired from work. Anne looks angry, and is disappointed with Eddie because Eddie is stubborn and acts as he pleases. Anne felt used, and asked to break up right away, and return the engagement ring. In the evening, a group of cars were seen heading to the Life Foundation. The group turned out to be carrying 3 capsules containing species of alien organisms. Then elsewhere seen the female officer in the ambulance before heading into the crowd, eating live eels and making a fuss. She kills anyone who disturbs her. Then the woman approached an old woman and saw her hand touch the body of the old woman and made the old woman stand up straight and start walking. 6 months later, in the Life Foundation's laboratory, they tested the biological interactions of the organisms they brought from outer space. The organisms were called symbiotes and it was seen that the symbiotes succeeded in symbiosis with rabbits. Drake, who saw it, looked happy. He said the symbiote can survive on Earth with a suitable host. It is possible that humans can also survive in outer space if symbiotic with the symbiote. Then Drake ordered to conduct trials on humans. A scientist named Dora looks doubtful and doesn't want to test on humans, but Drake still insists on testing humans. Elsewhere Eddie is seen in a bar regretting his fate. Then he decides to go home because he saw Drake on television. On the way Eddie greeted Maria, a homeless person on the side of the road. Eddie gave Maria $20. Then Eddie entered Mrs. Chen's shop to buy something. Inside the shop while buying goods, Eddie saw someone rob Mrs. Chen at gunpoint. The poor Eddie could only watch from a distance without being able to do anything. Arriving at the house, Eddie was seen getting several bills and then Eddie tried to call looking for work but no one accepted Eddie. Then Eddie tried to calm himself down by meditating but suddenly there was a guitar sound which made Eddie annoyed and angry. What a tough day for Eddie. Moving to the Life Foundation's laboratory, where Drake led the experiment to unite the symbiote with humans, Drake entered a volunteer. The symbiote door began to open and the symbiote came out of the tube and slowly approached the volunteer who was confined in the laboratory room. Enter the symbiote in the volunteer's chest. First nothing happened but then the volunteer felt excruciating pain. His body was crushed from the inside and the symbiote came out of the body of the dead volunteer. Another day, Eddie is shopping as usual. He is seen talking to someone. He is Dora, one of Drake's subordinate scientists. She says that she needs Eddie's help to uncover the crime that Drake committed, namely using volunteers to do trials. Dora from the beginning did not agree with Drake being arbitrary like that, but Eddie refused to help because Eddie knew if Drake was a very dangerous person for a moment he could ruin Eddie's life. Then Dora left her business card. In case Eddie changed his mind, then Eddie was seen watching Anne's former lover's residence from the street. He had just looked at the house Anne, who had just returned from somewhere to meet Eddie, and seemed to have found a new partner, a surgeon. Eddie still hopes for Ann to come back, but it seems that Ann is still angry with what Eddie has done before. Then Eddie walked down the street alone and stopped at the edge of the bridge looking at the Life Foundation headquarters. After pondering about what had happened to him, Eddie decided to be willing to help Dora. Eddie then contacted Dora. Dora invites Eddie to enter the Life Foundation's headquarters to collect evidence of the crime that Drake has committed. When he is about to enter the laboratory, suddenly a security guard appears. Dora then tackled the security guard and Eddie entered the lab alone. Inside the lab, while Eddie was collecting evidence, Eddie found one of the homeless people who used to greet him on Maria Street. Then Eddie tried to open the door by hitting him with the tools available. The door was too managed to open. Maria immediately jumped and strangled Eddie. The symbiote in Maria's body was seen moving into Eddie's body. Then because the security alarm sounded, Eddie ran to escape. He could easily avoid the chase of the officers. Eddie seemed able to break through the guardrail and run into the wilderness. Not only that, the officers still chased him into the forest and they lost track of Eddie. They don't know if Eddie is hiding in a tree. Arriving at home, Eddie looked very thirsty and hungry. He ate whatever was there until the leftover food in the trash he ate, then went in the bathroom and looked in the mirror. Eddie's face changed and a voice from inside his body called his name. Eddie jumped and passed out. While at the Life Foundation laboratory, Drake looks angry that one of his symbiotes has been stolen. Then one of the scientists showed that there was one volunteer who was able to survive with one of the symbiotes in his body. Drake looked a little happy, but Drake still ordered his men to look for the missing symbiote. Back again to Eddie, when he saw his room was already a mess. Elsewhere, seen at the airport, the old grandmother who had entered the symbiote earlier targeting a small child. Back again to Eddie. In the afternoon, he met Ann, who was having lunch. She gave evidence of the crime that had been committed by Drake, where Eddie was acting strangely by eating her food and throwing himself into the lobster filled, and he continued to eat it. Lobster was there, and Louis' boyfriend Ann, who is a doctor, then takes Eddie to the hospital for examination. At the hospital, Eddie was laid to check. When Louis tried the machine to check Eddie and his symbiotes were seen for the condition. Louis turned off his MRI. Meanwhile, in the Life Foundation, Drake, who saw the host of his symbiote weaken, then went to his subordinates who captured Dora and found out that Dora was involved in a laboratory breach a few days ago. Drake interrogated Dora and forced Dora to say that Eddie was the one who took Drake's symbiote. Drake opened the door. The tube containing the symbiote and the symbiote entered Dora's body. Eddie, who was at home, suddenly heard a voice from inside his body to be careful. When Eddie opened the door, Drake men came in asking for their symbiotes back. Unexpectedly, Eddie was able to knock them out easily with the power of the symbiote in his body. Even Eddie able to jump and hang, thanks to the symbiote in his body. Drake, who saw the chase video, was amazed by what Eddie was doing. According to Drake, Eddie had achieved symbiosis with his symbiote. Eddie then fled using his motorbike, and there was a pretty exciting chase on the streets. With the power of the symbiote in his body, Eddie was able to dodge all attacks from Life Foundation's men. Long story short, when Eddie was off guard, he was hit by Drake men from the side. Eddie was injured and his leg was broken, then a symbiote appeared from inside Eddie's body. Instantly all wounds and broken bones inside Eddie's body was healed and back to normal. Visible symbiote true form inside Eddie's body. The symbiote bit the head of one of Drake's men, then fled and avoided the police chase and plunged into the sea. Eddie got away. In hiding, Eddie talks to the symbiote in his body. The symbiote is named Venom. Venom says the symbiotes will find their own host, and Venom chooses Eddie to be his host. Venom says that he wants to pick up his people using Drake's rocket, which will be launched again, then they will rule the earth. Then it looks like the child who has been entered by the symbiote has arrived at the San Francisco airport. In the Life Foundation laboratory, it can be seen that Dora and the symbiote that came out of his body are both dead. Drake, who saw it, was annoyed that one of his symbiotes died. Elsewhere, Eddie tries to enter the news agency where he worked before. Richard, as the receptionist, looks unable to let Eddie in for security reasons. Outside the building, Venom offers to help. Eddie enters the building by climbing the building to the top.
It is peaceful up here.
At the top of the building there was a plane passing by them. Venom looked in pain because he couldn't stand the sound. Eddie fell, but Venom was able to stop Eddie from falling all the way down. Venom also entered a room that was Eddie's superior's room, where Eddie left evidence of Drake's crime. Eddie wanted to publish the evidence. When he came out of the building, there were many police officers blocking Eddie. Eddie warned them, and then Venom emerged from inside his body to fight the officers easily.
Anybody, where is it?
When Venom tries to eat one of the cops, and sees him, Eddie tries to give an explanation then and takes Eddie to the hospital. It looks like Venom likes Ann, so he wants to be taken to the hospital. In the car, Venom tells Eddie that his weakness is loud sound waves and fire. Moving to the Life Foundation laboratory, Drake saw a small child wandering around in his laboratory. When asked, the child immediately strangled Drake's neck. There was a symbiote from the child's body into Drake's body. At the hospital, Louis tells Eddie that Eddie's internal organs are getting damaged, but inside Eddie's body, Venom says that he can heal Eddie. Venom is annoyed and then strangles Louis, and Ann, who saw what happened, immediately turned on the MRI machine, then made Venom in pain and came out from inside Eddie's body. Eddie was pulled out of the room, and finally Eddie was free from Venom. Eddie then left the room, where Ann and Louis argued over what had happened. Seeing Venom sneak out through the air vent, and then realized Venom had left. Elsewhere, Venom is seen entering the body of a dog. When Eddie tries to get out of the hospital, he is intercepted by Drake's troops, and they easily capture the weak Eddie without Venom in his body. In the Life Foundation office, Drake interrogates Eddie asking where Venom is. Eddie refuses to answer. Drake, who loses patience again, repeats his question by showing the symbiote's face in his body. The symbiote is named Riot. Realizing that Eddie is no longer valuable, Drake orders his troops to kill Eddie. His troops then took Eddie into the forest. Meanwhile in the lab, Riot ordered Drake to launch his rocket to pick up millions of his people to Earth to rule the Earth. In the forest, Eddie, who was almost killed by Drake's troops, was suddenly saved by a foreign figure. It turned out that the figure was Venom, who entered Anne's body. They then kissed and Venom moved from Anne's body back to Eddie's body. Venom ordered Eddie to prevent Riot because Riot is a leader who will summon his symbiote troops from outer space to Earth. In the Life Foundation, Drake ordered his men to immediately launch his rocket, while Eddie and Venom in his body walked back to the Life Foundation office to stop Riot. Eddie was surprised because Venom also initially wanted to rule the Earth. Then Venom changed his mind after meeting Eddie. He started to like Eddie. Venom also tells that in his symbiote nation, Venom is a loser, and Venom doesn't want other symbiotes to rule the Earth. Venom wants him to be the only symbiote on Earth. In the Life Foundation, Drake forced his subordinates to immediately launch his rocket. Realizing one of his men tried to thwart the rocket launch, Drake then turned into Riot and killed the person. Instantly everyone was scared and ran away. But the rocket launch has already started. Outside the building, Venom realizes his strength is not as strong as Riot, but he still tries to stop Riot. When approaching the rocket, Riot confronts Venom and a fight ensues there. Venom is seen tired of facing Riot, who is able to bring out various weapons from within his body. In the fight, Riot, who is too strong, enters Eddie's body and overpowers Venom. They unite under Raid's control. Riot is getting stronger. When Riot is about to enter the plane, there is a loud buzzing sound. Riot is in pain and Venom can be freed from Riot's trap. It turned out that it was thanks to Anne, who rang the voice from the control room. Eddie and Drake were seen free from their respective symbiotes and fighting. Eddie had kicked Drake and fell, but Eddie's guess was wrong. Riot joined Drake, stabbed Eddie from behind. Eddie was dying. Raid rushed into the plane that was immediately launched. While dying, Venom emerged from the vent and into Eddie's body. Venom got up and chased Drake. Then Venom tore the rocket fuel tank and instantly the rocket exploded, killing Riot inside. Venom, who could not stand the fire, had said goodbye to Eddie. Eddie then fell into the sea with a normal form without Venom. Looks like the next day, Eddie talks to Anne. They talk about each other's work and then Venom's voice comes from inside Eddie's body. Venom isn't dead yet. On the way, Eddie talks to Venom not to eat people. Venom quickly eats good people. Then Eddie enters Mrs. Chen's shop and buys some before Venom. A man robs Chen and points a gun at him. Then Venom comes to that person and eats the last person. Eddie enters the San Quentin prison looking to meet someone for an interview. The officers call that person Red. When Eddie approaches that person is free. Later will be there and the film is over.